So we now have just 2 manufacturers to go in the one makes. So we must head to the UK for the final time for the British one makes, and we need to head to TVR, which will also be our second to last manufacturer among others, as the other manufacturer we have is Volkswagen coming afterwards. And I think because I've already used the T350C once, I don't think I'm going to use that again. The Tamura does look like an enticing choice, but because I want to make sure I'm being clinical with my execution, I want to at least make sure that I am doing this correctly. Flip-flop yellow. Certainly an interesting look, I will give them that. Crystal topaz. I don't think so. Could go with this thing in black, but might have some issues. Sunset pearlescent. Got some interesting colours here, but not sure on which one to go for, really. You know what, I think we're gonna go with Reflex Spice for this one, because it doesn't look like really any colours I've driven for a while. I think it's supposed to be orange, but, well, to be honest, I just want to get this finished more than anything else. As I'm now down to under 7 figures again, in terms of my money, but hopefully I've got the right car to get this job done. As it's time for Blackpool Racers, as pretty much the entire TVR family can enter this event. I thought about using the T350C, but I decided I would let that rest instead. So, this is a series of races for the TVR which fuses the avant-garde with high performance. And for this, we've got 5 laps of Suzuka East, 3 laps of SS Route 5, followed by 3 laps of Laguna Seca, then 4 laps of Opera Paris, and then to finish, 3 laps of Fuji 05. So, let's begin with 5 laps of Suzuka. Alright, so for our first one, we've got one TVR Cerberus Speed 12 with a Cerberus Speed 6, and aside from that, we've also got the V8S, one Tamura, and one T350C. And as always, gotta turn off the assists because, well, it's what I do with most of these cars I drive, to show that it pretty much is me that's doing the hand-to-hand control of the car. And here we go for race 1. I will say I did pick an interesting colour choice for this one, and 99 points if we can win. This could be interesting. And shifting up into second gear so I don't get any wheel spin. And that worked out surprisingly well for me off the launch. I really thought for sure I was going to get some wheel spin, but that actually went through me perfectly. I honestly got the best start imaginable. Which, to be honest, is quite insane considering this thing is, well, front-engined rear-wheel drive. And I think also has a V8 as well, if I remember. Could also just be a V6, but I think this thing has a V8 engine. Or, if I'm using Top Gear terms, it technically has a 350 horsepowered V8 motor. And yes, I did say that in my own voice without being a stereotype in really any way. Just using the context as appropriately and innocuously as I can. And already proving that I am moving nicely up front and seeming to generate quite a gap as well. As I've now got at least a 5-second gap up front. Yep, I called that one. A 5.6 second gap to be more specific. As I almost run wide there. On the exit of turn 2. But now heading through the snake curves once again. Or the S curves, as they call them most of the time. And it looks as though my lead is slowly building up. And I think if I were to guess the car right behind the Tamura right now, it would probably be the Speed 12, considering that is the most powerful TVR of the bunch. Although in some cases, with this event at least, I think what it proves is that it's not always power that matters the most with some of these events. A lot of these events from time to time can pretty much be decided on the agileness of the car, as well as also the handling, and in some cases, if possible, the nimbleness of the car. And I think because, you know, Suzuka East is a handling course more than anything else, that's probably the main reason why I am currently running so well. Because my Tuscan is handling just the way it's supposed to. And I now have a 13-second gap up front. And barring any serious mistakes, of course, I don't think I am going to lose that gap. As I almost veer off course. And the understeer is kicking in for some of these corners, but able to at least keep the car settled. And off the final corner, and there we go, a very comfortable victory in race 1. And the Speed 12 did manage to clear the Tamura in the end, but I think he probably lost a ton of time trying to get past him. And in some cases I was lucky, because when the Speed 12 is out in clear air, it's probably one of the fastest cars you'll come up against. But I was glad to say on that occasion, I did not have to feel the wrath of the Speed 12. And the Tamura also managed to finish virtually 16 seconds behind me, or almost. But yeah, most of the time if the Speed 12 is in clear air, it's pretty fast. I should just tell you that now. And this time the Speed 12 is up front, so this could be interesting. But aside from that, we've got 2 Tuscans if you include me, 1 Subaru Speed 6, the V8S, and also 1 TVR Griffith. Let's see how we go. I'm hoping this will go well, but I will say that the corners are going to be the vital part of what gets me to the front of this field, because I know the Speed 12 is going to be fast. And I know very well that I have more acknowledgement of the Speed 12 in terms of speed than I do with just about pretty much any other car in the field, as it's already building up an early lead. And kind of having to force my way through the field early must be because the difficulty spike is not much of an issue with this event or something. But I am 2.6 seconds behind the Speed 12. I reckon on the straightaways he's going to blitz me, but I might be able to do the same thing through the corners, because oftentimes I do tend to be slightly faster than the AI through the corners most of the time. So, trying to look for room on the outside. Doesn't give it to me, but the corner exits I know are where he'll be strong, but on the corner entries he'll be weak. And yep, just as I would have thought, he is just blasting away from me. So this is where things get interesting. And if I'm going to pass him, then I need to pass him through the corners, because otherwise I'm going to have no chance of stopping him. In other words, I need to be near flawless through most of these corners if I am going to get a pass done. I need to make sure that my superior cornering speed is keeping him on edge. That's how I'll catch him out. And that's also how I'll pass him. As I do right here. Made a little bit of contact there as he backs way the fuck out of the corner after I passed him, but you know what? I think that's a good thing, because it actually means that I've now got a gap on him, and if he passes me on the straightaway like I think he will, it at least means that my cornering advantage is enough to at least keep him in check for the cornering section. I'm expecting him to catch up to me any moment, because he's just got that superior speed. And still the gap remains at 2 seconds, so I guess he's not catching up to me as much as I thought he would. Well, a little bit of a shame, but to be honest, as long as I win and I more or less get the elbows out enough to the point where I know that we can all say Robbins Racing, then well, that's pretty much all it is. You know, it's just Simply one of those racing deals. I did also wonder if it was only going to be a matter of time at Suzuka before the Tamura got past for second. I mean, it was bound to happen eventually because of the Speed 12's double-edged horsepower or thereabouts. And right now, I seem to be looking fine. Someone also opened my door, so I was a little bit distracted there. But anyway, that was surprisingly easier than I thought it was going to be. And the Speed 12 didn't completely fall behind, as he was only 2.3 seconds behind in the end. But because my cornering speed was slightly better, that was how I outpaced him. So another 3 grand is mine, and we are 2 for 2 in the Blackpool races. I should also mention Blackpool is a coastal city that is further up north from where I live. Just to give you some context as to where Blackpool is. Anyway, on to the next one. Alrighty. Now we are in California once again, as we are at Laguna Seca, and the Speed 12 is once again at the back of the field with me, which means he will most likely dice his way through the field, as he so often does, and then probably catch up to me when I'm already basically seconds up the road from everyone else. I have a strong feeling that says that's pretty much how this is going to play out. Especially because, well, like I said before, the Speed 12 is mighty and powerful when it comes to long straightaways, but when it comes to corners, that's where it is not quite as strong. I suspect there will be some passing coming from him, but I wouldn't be expecting too much, to be honest, because it is quite hard to pass around Laguna Seca as it is most of the time. It's alright, it's fine. We did save it. Bit of a skeptical corner exit there, but we did manage to save it at least, as I got some wheel spin off the corkscrew. And now through Rainy Curve, I do manage to get through there successfully, and now I just have to pass the TBR Griffith at the end of the first lap. I did have the advantage on the inside, and I was pretty much on the racing line, so that's pretty much job done now. And now I just have to wait and see how long it is before the Speed 12 gets here. Although I will say the Griffith for now is not falling too far behind, so I suppose that's something at least. I mean, if we were a test course, then the Speed 12 would have pretty much blitzed all of us by now, but considering we're on actual racetracks and we're basically just navigating the corners as much as we are the straightaways, that's pretty much where we're able to challenge the Speed 12 realistically. Probably didn't need to upshift for the corkscrew, but I did so anyway. The undulation drop you get from the corkscrew, it has definitely claimed many victims over the years, both in IndyCar and also in the MotoGP when they used to race here before they moved it to COTA. Couldn't tell you exactly when they moved the US Grand Prix to COTA, but Laguna Seca at one time used to be a mainstay for the MotoGP calendar. And I do get why a lot of MotoGP fans obviously loved Laguna Seca when it was on the calendar. It was definitely one of those mainstays on the MotoGP circuit. That most people would obviously pay good money to watch. But I will say at the same time, you know, with COTA, or Circuit of the Americas if you want to be more specific, but at the same time with COTA, it does manage to produce the same sort of action that you would be expecting to see at Laguna Seca. And unsurprisingly, the Speed 12 is now up to second. I was wondering when it was going to get there, considering the Speed 12 does have more than 600 horsepower, but either way, I don't think it's going to catch up to me in time. It'll be a close one, but I don't think his raw pace is going to be enough to stop me, because I worked my way to the front of the field first, and as a result, I score 1-2-1 in points. Because my car handles better through the corners. Still, I will say there is quite a separation gap from 3rd place to 4th place with this event. I've noticed that has become quite the recurring theme. But anyway, 8-second victory at Laguna Seca with the Griffith rounding off the podium. So now, let's go to the next one. Alrighty. Race 4, and this time we have got no Speed 12. We've got another Speed 6, a V8S, a T350C, a Tamora, and the Griffith 500. I think this race is going to be easy. And 30 points, so that is a significant drop compared to the points we have been scoring up to this stage in the event. Should also mention I've now surpassed over 4,100 miles driven now. Even though some of that can be, well, chalked down to the grinding that I've done for the money, of course, and not really off to the best of starts, but I am at least trying to work my way through the narrow streets of Opera Parry. Getting a little bit squiggly there, but able to at least work my way forwards as I'm trying to find my way past the TBR. I will say that was a little bit awkward, but I did manage to at least work my way up to third. I'm also glad to say that the Speed 12 is not necessarily an opponent I need to worry about in this race, because I think down these straightaways he might have me blitzed. But I have established here at Opera Paris the intervals from time to time can be deceiving, as the T3... it's a bit of a tongue twister. The T350C is now just up ahead of me, gets on the brakes after a little oversteer, and I managed to slot into second. And now all that's left is to catch up to the leading Tuscan, and I will probably need to get something to eat once I'm finished with this. But thankfully I've only got one more race to do, so I'll probably get my lunch as soon as I'm done with this, and then I'll try to finish the one make events afterwards. Especially since I do have 2 championships to do with one single race event. That's basically what VW is. So the gap is now less than a second. Gave him a little bit of a bump there, nothing intentional. It was just the power of the draft I was in, and this time I do manage to pass him up the inside. Overtake was successful, and now I just need to build up my lead. Although, to be fair, if the Speed 12 was in this race, I think I probably would have been able to find a way past him anyway, because again, Opera Paris is another one of those courses with plenty of low and medium speed corners combined. And because the Speed 12 doesn't handle as well as the Tuscan does through the corners, I think I probably would have been able to pass him at some point in the race anyway if I would have got close enough. He would have probably had me nailed on the straightaway, but for the rest of the course I think we would have been even Stevens. Because that is partly the reason as to why I was able to beat into his 3-second gap he built up at Route 5. I will admit I was a bit aggressive when it came to catching back up to him, but I just wanted to make sure that my handling advantage was about as clear as his acceleration and top speed advantage. Which is partly the reason as to why I've been able to beat him up to this point. Because I have just been simply outpacing him through the corners. And that's where it really matters. And I went a little deep there, around that bus stop. But it's okay, because I have a pretty sizable gap above everyone else. and I doubt anyone at this point is going to stop me. So just got a few corners to go now. And then that will be race 4 done. And there we go. Another victory for the Tuscan, as the V8S in the end dropped to the back. Sucks to suck, I guess. Even though the V8S was running in third at one point. I guess his track pace wouldn't have been... just wasn't enough to hold off the Griffith or the Tamora. Considering the V8S, from what I know, does have less than 300 horsepower, I think. Anyway. And that is now replay saved from our penultimate one make manufacturer. And now we will go to Fuji for the final race. Okay, so for this one, we've got one TVR Griffith with one V8S, another Tuscan Speed 6, we've also got the Cerberus Speed 6, and back for one last fight is the Speed 12. So, without further ado, let's go and see if we can pull this off. Like we have been doing. And up into second gear again so I don't get any wheel spin. And in some cases the Speed 12 and the Tuscan both get blocked by the V8S, and I got bumped from behind by the V8S, but he was probably bumped by the Speed 12, who's now already up to 4th and probably looking for 3rd. Yep, there he goes. Now I just have to get past the Griffith as soon as I can, as it looks like this is probably going to be the closest battle I think I'll have with the Speed 12, from what I can gather. As the Speed 12 gets a little bump there from the Griffith, who probably got loose. But we now head into the infamous chicane because of how tight it is to get through. Has claimed many victims over the years, that chicane. And I get why, obviously, so many racing gamers over the years have learned to hate that chicane because of how tight it is on entry. And through the final hairpin we go, and this is going to be where the Speed 12 blitzes me in just on track pace. But the corners are normally where I have it strong. So if he does get past me, I'm just going to let him go, because he's got to be doing at least 180 down the straightaway, maybe even 190. That's just the amount of raw speed he has, but surprisingly he was not attempting to pass me on the straightaway, which is a bit of a surprise, but nonetheless it at least gives me a reason to feel confident in my shots of winning, as long as I don't make any mistakes. And we're pretty much leaving the rest of the pack far behind us at this point in the event. Still braking a little early there for the chicane, but as long as I make it through okay, I don't really give a shit on how early I choose to brake for that fucking chicane. I should also mention, for future installments, this car would also be redesigned as a premium car for future games in the GT series. And I think at this point the Speed 12 can really do nothing about my raw pace overall, because my cornering speed is just that much better than his. Or seemingly that much better, I should say. I'm kind of just coasting my way around at the moment, because the Speed 12 is not going to have the same entry speeds through the corners as to what I have. And handling through the corners, I think, is probably the big advantage I have over the Speed 12, which is the main reason why I have been able to outpace him rather comfortably through most of these corners. Yep, it's all good, just keeping her on track. Now, just got the hairpin to negotiate. Get a little bit wide there on the curb, but able to prevent any oversteer from kicking in, as I did the same sort of thing through the hairpin. And there we go. The Blackpool Racers is going to be swept as well. We end Britain in style, as I was able to win with a 3.6 second gap, or thereabouts. And I don't think anyone else is going to make the finish. No, they don't. Because our pace was just that much better than everyone else. Really is no other way I can describe it, to be honest. We basically just dominated the entire event, and the Tuscan didn't manage to get past the Griffith. Well, I'm going to assume most TBRs must have quite similar pace in terms of the ponies they put out. But anyway, let's go and get our prize car. Wouldn't be surprised if it turns out to be the Speed 12, but we'll wait and see. Yeah, I should have seen this one coming. I was pretty certain in saying that because there aren't any TVR race cars in this game, there could only be one other option. And sure enough, that option turned out to be the Subaru Speed 12. But there we go. Blackpool Racers is now done. And that's now all but one manufacturer of one makes now done. So, TVR is now done in style. Alright, we're now 91.6% complete with the game, and we've now got over 36,500 points overall. And let's now go and look at our 205th car, which comes in Chameleon special colour. Oh, correction, this thing has 800 horsepower. No wonder it was so fast. And this thing also has a V12, no surprises there really, because, well, it does say speed 12, so yeah, should have seen that one coming, to be honest. But nonetheless, we still get a supercar, and that's what I like. And does this thing have a V8? Oh, it's a V6 actually. Okay. Yeah, I should have seen that one as well because the clue is in the name. Anyway, that is now all but one manufacturer cleared in the one make races. As last but not least, we've got Volkswagen.